Is this a skinwalker on his roof?
Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel may be a shapeshifter reptile. I'll let you decide. In September 2012, during a press conference, viewers noticed that his eyes seemed to transform into, well, I'm not quite sure I know how to describe this because it's terrifying. Around his eyes, we see darkness of some sort, and suddenly his actual eyes become enlarged. Honestly, whatever happened wasn't human. Did he reveal himself as a shapeshifter reptile? I'm thinking yes. If you're enjoying this video so far, smash that like button as it'll really help us out. In our number 9 spot, we have Timothy Geithner. Former secretary to the treasurer, Timothy Geithner, has been accused of being a shapeshifter. Why? Well, because there's some weird footage of him possibly doing just that. Footage was taken of him at a press conference sitting and listening to the speaker when all of a sudden something starts happening to his right eye. A weird pattern that honestly looks like a pattern that you would see on a butterfly wing starts to form around his eye, sort of cupping it. It seems that it happens for a few seconds before he realizes it and tries to cover it up by touching the area, and in an instant, it's gone. No one can deny that the footage is rather odd, especially as he touches the area and poof, it's magically gone. It is super possible that we have a butterfly shapeshifter on our hands. Imagine. If I could be a shapeshifter, that's what I would want to be. Something with wings. Probably a fairy. That would be great. In our number 8 spot, we have US General David Petraeus. On June 15, 2010, the US General David Petraeus appeared to faint during a conference, but at one point though, his face appeared to be, well, not human. The footage of this one does appear to be a tad blurry, but it does seem like something has happened to his face. His face looks like it's, deformed, and the person that was looking at him and talking before he fainted did look a tad scared, but it could have been because he could see something was wrong. So there's that. But also, at one point, somebody stood up and conveniently blocked the camera from seeing him, so that's sus. But honestly, the footage for this one is too blurry for me to say, yeah, probs are reptiles. But the people that filmed it and shared it definitely said that they saw something that day and it did not look human. In our number 7 spot, we have Lady Gaga. Okay, Lady Gaga is an interesting one because there is a video that seemingly shows something going on with her eyes, but also she literally said on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert that she, quote, has always liked to shapeshift. Very sus, Gaga. The viewers of the show thought that it was a very interesting choice of words, and so many thought that there was a bit of truth to what she said, as if the energy around the word held more weight. I don't know. Certainly there are so many people that believe that Lady Gaga has had contact with the devil, and so it would make sense if she was a shapeshifter. Remember that time she suspended something in the air with her magical force field? Okay, but for real, is she a magical devil-like being or a shapeshifter? Would love to know your vote in the comment section below. In our number 6 spot, we have Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle, actress turned literal princess when she married Prince Harry, has had quite some speculation around her over being a robot. Now, I've heard many things, including reptilian, and some people believe something has just, replaced her. But the robot shapeshifter is an interesting theory. It started when a clip went viral over Harry and Meghan wearing masks to promote Madame Tussauds new Harry and Meghan edition. But what made everyone feel the creeps is not just the fact that their facial expressions are unsettling, but also because Meghan is not blinking. Terrifying. Whereas Harry apparently was. Anyways, I think that this got everyone to start theorizing that even though this is a mask, she may actually be a shapeshifter robot, and you know what? I don't blame them. We're probs living in iRobot and don't even know it. In our number 5 spot, we have President Bush. Now, this is a clip of Papa Bush, the 41st president of the US, speaking in an interview, and his eyes seem to change. For those of you who don't live in North America, there is a George Bush Sr. and Jr., and they both became president of the US. Anyways, this clip is of George Sr., aka Papa Bush, and most people are in agreement that he is absolutely a reptilian. I mean, at this point, I'm starting to be convinced that all the politicians are, but who knows? Maybe the whole world is. Maybe I am. Honestly, I wish I could shapeshift. Then I would just shapeshift myself into a passenger that has a ticket to board a flight to Paris and peace out of here. You know what I mean? Anyways, in this clip, his eyes definitely form into slits, and there's no doubt that if this clip is real, and so many say that it is, then, you know, he's definitely not human. In our number 4 spot, we have Aileen Wuornos. Aileen Wuornos, who is known as an American serial killer, did a number of interviews before she was executed on October 9th, 2002. During a number of her interviews, people claimed to have seen some weird shape-shifting happening. This is a clip of an interview that she did where her eyes appeared to show that infamous reptile slit. You know, there is so many people that believe that sometimes shapeshifters are responsible for some of the worst crimes in the world, and then they just, you know, shapeshift out of prison afterwards after taking over the body of humans. That's definitely an interesting theory. I mean, regardless, clearly Aileen was evil, so even if she's not a shapeshifter, I'm sure someone could make a case for her being possessed by a demon. In our number 3 spot, we have Reptile Woman. This woman has been dubbed Reptile Woman for pretty obvious reasons. The footage that was taken of this mystery woman surfaced online and was apparently not altered in any way. The footage seems quite normal until it's broken down frame by frame, and suddenly it's as if you see a different person. Her hands look different, her back, her face, and her eyes. It's fascinating. I personally wish the footage was easier to see, as it's not fully convincing me looking at something so blurry. It just makes me feel like it's been altered, but who knows? I may be wrong, and it sure seems like a lot of people believe that it's real. There have been a few people that have tried to debunk it, and truly I think I'm with them on their analysis. This one is too blurry for me to think that it's possibly real, but whatever. It might be. In our number 2 spot, we have M.W. Jeffrey Black Hodgson. Let's call him Jeff, you know, for short. So Jeff is the Grand Master of the Masons in Massachusetts. Yeah, if you don't know anything about the Masons, then definitely have a Google sesh later tonight. That's a whole other rabbit hole in itself. But yeah, if you know anything about the Masons, then you probably won't be surprised that they are on this list. The Grand Master, the big guy calling the shots, is in this video, and he certainly shows signs of being a shapeshifter. From his eyes suddenly showing slits to his skin apparently showing evidence, there are a lot of people that believe that this guy is a shapeshifter. And in our number 1 spot, we have Britney Spears. Okay, this one I refuse to believe is real, because I love her. God, I do not want to believe it, but the footage certainly makes you think that it's possible that she's a shapeshifter, or that a shapeshifter at some point had taken over her body. That to me would check out more when you think of everything that she has been fighting for recently in terms of her freedom and gaining full control of her body back again. Who knows? Perhaps there is way more to it than we can imagine. I just love her though, so I refuse to believe that she was born a reptile. Anyways, in this shot, her eyes seemingly show slits at times, just like a lot of the other footage that we've shown, and this would point to some kind of reptile living within her.
Number 10. Man of Medicine. Okay, before we dive into some tales of Skinwalker sightings throughout history, we gotta make sure we know what exactly a Skinwalker is, right? That kinda matters, I'd say. It's been referred to as a boogeyman for Native Americans. Native tribes all have different gods, trade unions, politics, you name it, so these Skinwalker stories, they can vary quite a bit. More often than not, the Skinwalker is a type of medicine man who can disguise themselves as an animal or shapeshift. Now the first story is short and sweet. Kick our list off, here we go. It's from a few years ago. It's an anonymous source, of course, as most of these are, to protect their identity, and they say it moved like a toy rocking horse. What a way to start a story. Let's dive in. My uncle is Mexican and Native American. This happened in the desert in Southern California. He was driving around with his girlfriend late at night, and they saw something that looked like a huge black dog on the side of the road. He slowed down and the dog began crossing the road, but instead of walking like a normal dog would, wood, this thing moved like a toy rocking horse. I don't even know what that means. That's terrifying to even imagine. He said it stopped in the middle of the road and stared right at them, and its eyes had a red glow. My uncle is the most badass person I know, and it scared the crap out of him. Well, that's how you know. Here we go, number 10, and we're already into it. Number 9, Skinwalker Ranch. We've heard of this one before on Most Amazing, but what are the roots behind Skinwalker Ranch? Of course, it's been the center of attention for alien activity, a lot of UFO conspiracies being located in eastern Utah, but more importantly, this land is said to be cursed, or the land's inhabited by a skinwalker. Terry Sherman owned the property back in 1996. He was walking his dogs around the farm late at night when he came upon a wolf, a massive wolf. A wolf 3 times the size of a regular one. Now keep in mind, he's probably seen a few living where he does. This massive wolf had glowing red eyes. Thing that spooked Terry the most and eventually made him sell the property were these voices. Yeah, Terry heard voices while walking his dogs often. Voices coming from nobody, it seemed. Sherman described that the sounds spoke in a language he didn't understand, which adds to the Skinwalker theory. They came from the darkness. He felt like they wanted something. Yeah, I'd sell too, immediately. Gorgeous view. Here you go, take it. I don't care. It's free. Have it. Not for me. Voices? No way. Number 8, Thomas Winterton. So what happens next after you sell Skinwalker Ranch? Who moves in? Does anything else happen afterwards? Why, of course things happen afterwards. The ranch was sold to UFO fanatic Robert Bigelow for $200,000 in 1996. But after Bigelow sold the ranch later on to Adamantium, a steel company, things got intense. The voices returned. Now this time there was tons of surveillance equipment all over the property and more witnesses. There was cameras, alarm systems, infrared, you name it. If there's any voices, you'll hear it, or sometimes hopefully see it. If you've seen the movie Nope, this should all ring a bell. But apparently paranormal activity happens often here. Thomas Winterton, an employee of said steel company, he was interviewed and asked about the happenings, and he said, "I take my truck up the road, and as soon as I start to get closer, I start to get really scared. This feeling just takes over immediately, and then I hear this voice, as clear as you and me talking right now, that says, 'Stop, turn around.' So I lean out the window with my spotlight, and I start searching around, but I see nothing." Winterton and several other employees were hospitalized after experiencing skin inflammation and nausea while working on the ranch. To this day, they can't quite figure out what happened. Number 7, campfire sighting. From Redditor Out of Sight Dude, great name, this one's pretty juicy, here we go. While trading stories around a campfire, my friend recalled an encounter he had while serving an LDS mission. My friend's mission region had a reservation within its boundaries. However, it was relatively far from where he was serving. Now, on one occasion, him and his mission companion were asked to travel further than usual to meet with some investigators. Now, this took them near the reservation. On their way home, their car of course ran out of gas, and it wasn't until late at night until they were able to continue their journey home. This is like worst case scenario. I'm already so afraid. My friend chose a different route that took him through some back roads in an attempt to get home sooner, and he told us he was driving above the speed limit when he noticed movement in the woods lining the road. Well, because coyotes were common in the area, he took little notice at first, then he looked out the window and slammed on the brakes. The sudden stop jolted his companion awake, who immediately wanted to know what was going on. I looked down at the road next to the car and I saw 6 men running on all fours, keeping up with the car as I was driving 40 miles an hour. Number 6, dads don't lie. From username Endulos, my dad isn't a bullshitter. What a great way to start a story. All right, I'm in. My dad isn't a bullshitter or a liar, so I know this story is true. So this was the early 80s, and my sister, who lived in Toronto, came down to visit her parents for a weekend. She was staying at a friend's house who loaned her a car so she could come out. Now, after her visit, she left a little after 9 p.m. She got maybe 7 or 8 miles away when the car just broke down. Okay, terrifying. Now thankfully she broke down in front or near a family friend's house, so she had aid. They let her in to call dad, and then dad came to pick her up. The family said she could leave the car in their driveway for the night, and my sister decided to just stay at my parents for the night. Okay, cool, we're improvising. It was now a little after 10 p.m., dark November night, when my sister and dad are driving back to the house, and they pass through this heavily wooded area. Out of nowhere, they hear this incredibly loud, inhuman scream, so my dad slammed on the brakes, and they both just started freaking out. When suddenly, a 6-foot-tall coyote walking on its back 2 legs with a black and white striped tail just suddenly appeared on the side of the road and proceeded to walk in front of the car. Now as soon as it passed and we kept going, that same scream played again, only this time it was even louder. Yeah, dad slammed on the accelerator and they got the hell out of there. Yeah, as anyone would. That's terrifying. I don't drive too often, but when I do, I'm pretty terrified of woods and just being in a dark area. No way. Number 5, New Mexico Patrol. In Hunt for the Skinwalker, a 2018 film directed by Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp and Colm Kelleher dive into the stories of those who supposedly came into contact with skinwalkers near Native American tribal lands. Now, one account was this New Mexico Highway Patrol officer. He says he saw a skinwalker on 2 separate occasions. The first time, he saw a creature wearing a white mask just appear next to his window, seemingly attaching itself to the car door, running beside the vehicle, keeping pace at highway speeds. Just like that account earlier, right? It's all starting to make more sense. A few days later, and around the same area, he encountered the creature once again. Now, what makes this tale even more intriguing is that at least one other officer claimed to have seen the same masked being while patrolling the same area. So, take it with a grain of salt, but it's pretty believable. Number 4, The Beast. July 2004, New Mexico. I had my first and only encounter with a skinwalker. Now, before this, I used to say, I'll believe it when I see it. Well, I'm a believer now. The story is amazing. Already I'm like, yes, you know how to send an email. What I saw was not full human nor full animal. I was moving with my young son and we had called it a night and we were heading to our new place. Now, as we walked out the front door, I saw a figure move from behind my neighbor's car to a nearby tree that stood between our apartments. It didn't have red glowing eyes, snarling teeth, or rotten smell, but it did move quickly, but not quick enough to avoid the light from a nearby light post and then a nearby set of porch lights. It didn't look at me or come towards me. It moved as if it was trying to avoid being seen. I was within 15 feet of it, but I did not look back to fully inspect it. What I saw was a wolf-like animal that sort of resembled the Beast in Beauty and the Beast, just, not cartoonish this time around. It had brown fur that completely covered it, like a very large wolf. Again, similarities to what we saw earlier, heard about earlier. My brother-in-law insists that it wasn't a skinwalker because I would have never seen it. To this day, I can picture what it looked like, and I know they exist, and I pray I never encounter one again. Yeah, I pray I never encounter one ever. Number 3, close coyote. This didn't happen to me, but a very close friend of mine. Okay, that's what everyone says, eh? Oh, this is a friend of mine. Didn't happen to me, just a close friend. I've heard a lot about coyotes and skinwalkers and had a weird experience or two with coyotes, but never anything paranormal, so to speak. Patrick's story, however, kept me from going back to a favorite back county secret stash. He had been camping there a couple days and said there was a coyote that always seemed to be close by, like in his peripheral vision almost, but never fully really there. He loaded up his truck and began to drive down the fire road, and at the end of the road, he could see the coyote still following him. Now, when he pulled onto another road, it was running next to him this time. Okay, now he's obviously freaked out, so he speeds up a bit. He said he was going 35 or so, yet still, it was running along beside him. Yeah, definitely not possible. But when he looked back, the coyote was running on 2 legs and was wearing what Patrick said looked like buckskin pants. So these are all so similar. This is so terrifying. An instant later, it looked like a person wearing coyote fur keeping pace with his truck. When he looked again, it was gone, just like that. We never went back to the Grove after that day. Yeah, rightfully so, stay away from that. I don't know what that is, but that's a big note. It's a big note for me. Number 2, Highway 89. This one's from the world of Reddit, from username SuperDave. Yeah, nice. It's not an anonymous one, like the last 4. This is good. This post has gained popularity and it's about 4 years old now. The post says, my wife and I were driving up through northern Arizona on Highway 89 between Flagstaff and Page. It was 1 a.m. and a little up the ways, I see a few sets of glowing eyes. So I let off the gas trying to avoid hitting an animal, of course, and when we passed, we saw several coyotes on the side of the road. And then one of them started running next to the car, probably 20 feet off the shoulder of the road. I floored it and then looked over and it stood up on its hind legs. There's a nightmare. Once again, hind leg trouble. That's the only way to describe it, they go on. And it kept at a pace with us for a couple of seconds before turning away from the road and disappearing. This was 20 years ago and we still rarely talk about it. I have like goosebumps in the back of my neck now. That's horrible. And finally, number 1, first Skinwalker tale. The Navajo Witch Purge of 1878. We can't forget this when talking about sightings or stories. We have to remember the real history back in the mid-1800s. This is when so many people were moving across and onto native lands, and sadly, after a series of disagreements and even wars with the US Army, the Navajo were sadly expelled from their land and forced to retreat to Fort Sumner in New Mexico. This is now referred to as the Long Walk of the Navajo in 1864. Numbers decreased fast. This new home was full of nothing but bad water, failed crops, and death. It was horrible. Now finally, after 4 years, the government finally admitted that they had made a mistake and the Navajo were allowed to return to their homeland in the Four Corners area of the United States. Now during these years, many tribe members were said to have turned to shape-shifting to escape the terrible conditions they lived in, while the rest of the tribe were convinced that their gods had simply abandoned them. Some powers included with these skinwalkers were reading minds, controlling thoughts, and causing disease and or illness.
And we're starting off this list with a short account posted to Reddit by user temporary value 421. It goes as follows. On a late walk, perhaps around 10:30, 11, me and my sister took a path through a churchyard and approaching an enclave in the next field. However, we heard a scream. It was not like an animal nor human. The harmony of both high and deep was rattling, like a man screaming crossed with a dying animal. There was a hedge on our way, obstructing vision. Whatever it was, it lay behind the hedge. We both looked forward and saw the silhouette of a tall, crooked thing. It was on two legs, though its back was hunched forward, its head long with jagged teeth. We didn't know what it was, nor did we want to. In any case, without speaking to each other, we ran in the opposite direction. Both of us. I am a coward, but my sister is tough as nails. She wouldn't simply run from an animal's cry, and yet we both ran. At our number 9 spot, we have the bathing skinwalker. Yeah, this is a weird one. Skinwalker or not, this is a creepy little video. So it's nighttime here. We see some folks pointing flashlights at someone or something bathing in a pond. It then stands up, and you can clearly see that whatever this figure is, it looks very shiny. I mean, like, sure, it was just sitting in a pond, but even still, almost looks like the figure is coated in oil or mud or something. And there's something about the way it moves that just makes it look not quite human. The figure seems to have very long arms, and it's hard to make out their face. Anyway, then it starts rushing towards the camera as our cameraman and his friends turn around and run. Number 8, Skinwalker in the Grass. This short video was uploaded to TikTok by user It's Louis Vuitton, and the sighting is very brief, but it shows what looks to be some sort of pale, spindly creature rushing towards the camera. It could also just be an aggressive man out in a field on his own, which is scary as well. They were filming out of their car window, flashlight in hand, in search of a buck that they had just seen before starting to film. But the cameraman quickly realizes that what they'd seen is not a buck when a pale figure abruptly stands up out of the bushes before hunching over and bolting towards the road. And that's where the video ends. Some might say it's very convenient that the camera cuts before we can get a proper view of the thing, but if I was driving alone late at night and saw something like that, booking it towards me, I wouldn't be sticking around to film it either. Even if it was just like a lone naked man. In fact, especially if it was a lone man. I'd risk capturing footage of a mythical creature, evil or not, but a crazed, nude human being, not quite worth the risk to reward. Number 7, Dog Head. This is another true story posted to Reddit by user the Putzulu. Anyway, it goes like this. I used to stay at my grandparents' house a lot when I was younger. They wanted to help out and such. They owned a 40 to 50 acre farm with their house about a quarter mile into the woods. It was summer and we were all going to bed. I always have had trouble falling asleep and was the only one awake and was returning from the bathroom to join my cousin on the top bunk with me in the bottom. The bedroom had one window facing a light post my grandparents had installed. I was just covering myself up when I saw something cast a shadow against the window curtain. Once, then twice. It was fast, but I could tell there was something moving outside. I crawl out of the bed, hugging the floor, already scared. I was about a foot from the closed curtain with my eye just above the windowsill. I stared out and nothing happened for a few seconds. Then I saw a figure cast a shadow onto the curtain. It looked like a big dog head. Long snout, tail, pointed ears. It stopped perfectly in the center of the window frame, then slowly turned its head to face me. Froze, but it then raised up a few inches to show its shoulders. I can only describe it as a wolf head on a human body. Then it turned away and moved on. People said I was young, it was only a nightmare. It wasn't. I remember it vividly. I forgot to mention that this window was about 5 feet up from the ground. It was my mother's old room as a child, and when I asked her if she ever saw anything, she paused for several seconds, began to speak, shook her head, and stuttered out a no. She knew the folklore and refused to speak, and we dropped it, but I knew why she responded that way. Never mention them aloud. I can't explain this. I'm still scared to be alone at night there. Even typing this gives me goosebumps. Next up, we have a piece of supposed Skinwalker footage posted to Reddit by user 123. this is a genuinely spooky piece of footage. If it is a hoax, they did a damn good job. Whatever this creature is, it looks creepy as hell. It's hard to make out, but a lot of people say it looks like General Grievous from Star Wars in the face, anyway. Not that you can really tell where this thing's face ends and its body begins. It seems to be crouching in someone's backyard, I guess. Then it gets up and you see that it's this big, hairy creature, possibly bipedal. I hate it. Not something you would ever want to run into at any time of the day, let alone in the dead of night. Only thing that I do find suspect about this video is that someone would just be like standing there all cool, just filming this thing, and instead of immediately running inside and, in my case, having a heart attack. But, you know, cool video nonetheless. Number 5, the Amarillo Zoo creature. This is an image you've likely seen before, really made the rounds on the internet for a while. It's an image captured on a security camera at the Amarillo Zoo in Texas. Now, if you're thinking it's just an animal from the zoo on its hind legs for some reason, this creature is roaming around on the outside of the zoo. A lot of folks on the interwebs say this looks like a werewolf. Sonic the Hedgehog comes up a lot, although if that's what Sonic looked like in real life, it'd be far less charming than he is in the video games. But if we're talking about a humanoid that can take on an animal form, this is definitely, it fits the bill. A bipedal dog or wolf-like creature, definitely giving me some Skinwalker vibes. What do you think though? Is it just a hoax? Is it real, but something totally innocuous? Post your thoughts in the comments. Number 4, dogs with human heads. Now, I'm not really sold fully on this next story being real, but at the end of the day, who knows? If there's one thing I've learned working on this channel, it's that a lot of bizarre stuff goes on our beautiful planet. Plus dogs with human heads. That is a title that immediately grabbed my attention. So this account was posted to Reddit by user Chilibot, and it goes something like this. At about 12:12 midnight, my mother heard something hit our front door. This caused my older sister and my mom to be awake at the same time. My sister's dog left her room and barked at the door. But because no further banging was heard, no one came to the front door to further check what the noise was. After my sister's dog stopped barking, my sister then heard the laughing of 2 small girls. The laughing was loud enough for my other sister, whose room is across from my older sister's room, to be awakened by it. My older sister decided to check outside her window and saw 2 white-looking dogs who were the cause of the laughing children's voices. After closely watching the 2 creatures, she then noticed that the 2 white dogs had human heads with flowing human-like hair. They laughed their way down the block, leaving my sister afraid. You know, whether that's true or not, like a dog laughing like a kid with a human head, I don't know what the hell I'm saying right now, but that is a creepy image. Number 3, the abandoned mineshaft Skinwalker. This next clip is just a fantastic video uploaded to YouTube by Danny Donahue. Worth checking out his channel. He has some very cool work on there. And this video is just well done. So, 2 people are standing outside this abandoned mineshaft. They hear this strange sound, almost like an elk call. Deciding to go full horror movie cliche, they decide to go inside the mine to see what it is. And it's eerily quiet. Just an empty tunnel, shrouded in shadow. That is, until this thing pops out. A slender, pale figure with glowing eyes. Just very effective. Number 2, Coyote. This next Skinwalker account was posted to Reddit by a now deleted user, but it goes as follows. Let me start off by saying my husband is native, and this happened about 6 years before I met him. My ex-husband was stationed in San Diego, and I flew out there to visit him. I found a hotel that wasn't far from the base and close to food and whatnot. I went out to get some food and then walked back to the hotel since it wasn't far. Unfortunately, with my horrible sense of direction, I got lost and ended up near a wooded area. But there was a highway also nearby. I was getting close to sunset when I started seeing sets of shining eyes, and I thought they were just coyotes. I'm not afraid of much. After about 20 minutes, one set of shining eyes got closer, and I saw it was a coyote. I watched Steve Irwin as a teenager and remembered that if you make yourself appear bigger and louder than you actually are, they'll usually just run off, so I started clapping my hands and shouting. This one, however, didn't. It stood up and started walking like a person. I've never run away from something so fast. It never followed me, and I wasn't gonna stick around to find out what it was. It wasn't until I met my current husband that I found out what it was, and the look on his face when I told him this story, he went pale. He never said anything, he just kinda nodded like he understood. Finally, we have Skinwalker Ranch. You can't really do a Skinwalker video without mentioning this hotbed of strange activity. All kinds of weird stuff goes on here. For starters, as the name suggests, there are strange creatures that have been reported in the area who many believe to be the malevolent entities known as skinwalkers. Witnesses at Skinwalker Ranch have reported very eerie encounters with these beings, describing creatures resembling wolves, coyotes, or other animals, but displaying these uncanny level of intelligence and unnatural physical abilities. They've been seen peering into windows, mimicking human voices, and even pursuing those who come too close. But, of course, in addition to all the skinwalker stuff going on, the ranch is a hotbed for other unexplained phenomena, mysterious cattle mutilations, where animals are found with precise surgical-like incisions and missing organs. This could be the work of skinwalkers as well, though. And of course, you get strange lights and UFO sightings regularly illuminating the night sky over the area.
Starting us off with number 10 are the ash bullets. This was from a native Navajo who was coming back from the Navajo Nation Fair with his family and grandmother. How many times am I gonna say Navajo in this video, I swear? The conversation somehow got onto skinwalkers, but his grandma shut it down pretty quickly. That night, as he was just in bed, he heard something moving outside his house. Thinking it was a stray dog or something, he didn't think much of it, but then he heard the loudest distorted scream, shat himself, then ran downstairs and woke up his mum. They looked outside the window and saw this coyote thing limping towards the door, dragging his right leg as he did. It started scratching at the door and moaning, and all his parents could do was shout words in Navajo at it, telling it wasn't welcome there. At this point, everyone in the house was awake and panicked, but his granddad knew exactly what to do. He went and got a handgun from a drawer and a bag of ashes. I don't know where he got this bag of ashes from, but he did, and he coated the bullets in it and loaded the gun. He went to the door shouting Navajo words and then opened the door and fired twice, but the thing escaped unscathed. His granddad turned around and said, "That's the fastest one I've ever seen." So he's a pro veteran at this, clearly. It was about 4 AM by the time everyone actually calmed down, and the family actually went to a medicine man the next day to be blessed against the skinwalker. Coming in at number 9 is the chase. So this was from a cop called J.G. Buckland, and he recalled how he was once working the night shift at a hotel in New Mexico. He was patrolling the hotel in his car when he decided to take a nap, just what I like to hear from the cop. A bit after 2 AM, something hit the bottom of his car so hard it actually swayed. Mind you, this was a 1978 Thunderbird, so it was a big, heavy car. I mean, it's not easy to make it move. JG woke up and drove forward and saw there was a dog sort of thing sitting where his car had been. But as he started looking at it, he felt like he was drowning in this dark energy and that this thing was just pure evil. The face of the dog had human features, mostly the eyes, but it didn't have a snout nose. That bit also looked more human, and it wasn't black tipped like a dog's nose. Size wise, it was slightly bigger than an adult German Shepherd, which are pretty big in and of itself. With this in mind, JG decided to hit the dog with his car, but it ran off the property but then back onto the property, so he started driving after it. It made its way into a third parking lot and then into a weedy area, and at this point JG was chasing it on foot with his gun. It came up and threw him aside like he was made of air and then ran away. This thing ran into the weedy area on 4 legs and exited on 2, so the dog was now a nude man that was screaming as it left, and after that encounter, JG had such bad luck, health problems, etc. after this, so he actually went to a shaman to get cleansed from this experience. And I want to be cleansed from telling the story. At number 8 we have the lookalikes. This one's from Redditor Jibby Jam 1, who was in New Mexico exploring some old Spanish ruins with some friends. While they were at one of the sites at night, they suddenly heard an angry, ear-piercing, blood-curdling scream, which prompted them to want to get the hell out of there. They went back to their camp, and a while later the user went for a piss about 300 meters from the camp, and this is where things got weird. He remembered seeing 2 dust devils coming towards him, but when he turned around, it was just 2 of his friends who were motioning him to follow them, which he did almost like he was being sucked into doing so. He followed his friends for like 10-15 minutes, but as he was snapping back to reality, he realized these weren't his friends at all. His friends had bright red hair, and these two people's faces were identical to his friends', but they both had cat-like eyes and were brunette. He stopped in his tracks and they turned to look at him as if they were about to kill him on the spot. He ran in a full sprint back to the camp where his friends hadn't even realized he was gone. Great friends you have, by the way. And he told them what had happened, and they packed the hell up and drove back to Albuquerque. Filling our number 7 slot is the delivery trip. This one's from Reddit user Neptune420, whose dad ran a small delivery service in Farmington, New Mexico. One day they got a delivery for Window Rock, Arizona on the Navajo reservation, and the dad decided to take his Navajo friend Travis and his girlfriend with him as they wanted to see some family there. So they took 2 separate trucks and had walkie-talkies with them so they could communicate between vehicles. The trip and delivery went fine, they had a great day, but then on their way back, that was when things really took a turn for the worst. They're driving towards a hill, and as they crest it, the dad sees what he thinks is a giant dog sitting on its haunches in the middle of the road facing away from them. He walkies his friend Travis in the other car, asking if he sees the dog, to which Travis replies, "That is not a dog, speed up right now and hit it." Hysterically, he went on and said, "Hit it, JJ, you have to hit it, please hit that thing right now." So the dad speeds up, and as they get closer, they see the dog's matted hair seems to have dried blood all over it, and just before they hit it, it turned around to reveal that it had a face. The face was a hybrid between a bear and a human, but it looked distorted and in pain, and as soon as they hit it, it screamed like it was drowning and then ran into the nearby field. They saw a cop a little while later, and Travis made them pull over and was completely on edge when he told the officer that they saw a Skinwalker a few miles back and it had been following them. The officer, who was Navajo himself, turned white, stammered something unintelligible, and then got into his car and left. Very helpful. But what I took away from this story is the fact that the dad, no questions asked, just hit this thing. Like, he didn't even question Travis, like, oh, why should I hit that dog? He just went from 0 to 100 real quick, fast and furious, real quick. Now at number 6 is the walking coyote. Now this one's from Redditor Endelos, who said during the early 80s, his sister was on the way back from a friend's at night when her car broke down. Thankfully, she broke down in front of a family friend's house, so she went in and called her dad, and he came to get her. They were driving back at around 10 PM and were passing a heavily wooded area when out of nowhere they hear an incredibly loud inhuman scream. The user's dad hit the brakes just in time to see a 6-foot tall coyote with a black and white striped tail walking on just 2 legs. Thankfully, I don't think the sister or dad were its true targets because it disappeared quite quickly after that, but then they heard the same scream again, only 10 times louder than the first time. This time the dad didn't brake, he accelerated out of that situation ASAP. Coming in at number 5 is the Running Man. This was from Brent Swanson, and funnily enough, it also took place near Window Rock, Arizona. He was driving on the highway at night when he saw what seemed to be a large coyote sitting in the middle of the road. He slowed down so he wouldn't hit it, unlike that other user's dad, and he found that the coyote wasn't scared of the car at all. It didn't even move a muscle when Brent honked at it, so he just decided to save himself the trouble and drive around it. As he drove away, his dad turned to him and went, "Would you look at that?" And he was referring to the coyote who was now chasing behind the car. The coyote then matched the speed of the car running right alongside it, and then out of nowhere the coyote becomes a naked running man. Still keeping pace with the car, mind you. The man started slapping the car while having the creepiest grin on his face. Like, I can just imagine that, and I just don't want to imagine it anymore. At this point, they're going like 50 miles per hour, but he's still there. To end his pursuit, the man let out a loud wail and then swerved away. Either way, Brent and his dad were terrified, and I would have been too, but for some reason, I really can't shake the image that this naked man looked like the guy who plays Aquaman. I don't know why, it's just in my head. At number 4 is the party. This one's from Redditor Trey_Lightning, who said that anytime his mum would take him to her hometown on the reservation, she'd always tell him a Skinwalker story. But this particular one was told to him by his aunt. Now back in the day, his aunt and her friends used to party a lot, and one day they got in a van, drove out to the boondocks and just drank. A bit after sunset, everyone was laughing and in good spirits when they heard what sounded like rocks being thrown at the van. The sound stopped, but then an even bigger sound followed, and they quickly realized someone or something had just jumped onto the roof of the van. They lock all the doors, and his aunt is in the driver's seat trying to start the engine, but obviously it doesn't start, like in every horror movie ever. Such timely engine failure, I swear. But anyway, the thing on the roof is still banging on the van, and then his aunt sees a hand with the long nails reach over the roof and start scratching the windshield. Then it jumps off and walks up to her window and just stares at her. And his poor little aunt at this point is just praying for her life, but then after a few minutes of panicking, screaming, and staring, the thing leaves them and the van finally starts miraculously bang on time, and they leave. Filling our number 3 slot is the white powder. This one comes from an anonymous Navajo woman living in Shiprock, New Mexico. She said during one of her visits home, she heard her dogs relentlessly barking at something outside, and then she heard a loud thud above her on the roof. Her sisters got quite scared, and her parents assured her it was just a dog or a cat and just to go to sleep. Parents really need to stop telling us it's just a cat or a dog, because clearly, as we've seen, it's not. But anyway, the dogs were continually barking and running back and forth, and then she had a metal pole hit one of the dogs, and she knew it was a pole because her sister had put it on the roof the day before. She tried to get up but fell into a deep sleep, and the last thing she heard were human footsteps on the roof. The next day there was nothing suspicious on the roof or around, but her cousin did complain about her head hurting, and the next day she straight up died, just like that. They brought a medicine man to conduct a ceremony, and he said that 2 of you know exactly what happened. He went on to say it was a man in bare skin on the roof of the house, and he was using a hummingbird as a lookout and a helper, and he blew white powder onto the woman's cousin, which is why she died, but that was also the reason why everyone in the house fell into a deep sleep that night. The ceremony went on, and the woman later found out that the powder used was crushed human bones taken from graveyards, as if the story wasn't screwed up enough. Now at number 2 is the herd. This one's also from Redditor Navajo Joe, which is quite fitting, I guess, but when he was a kid, him and his uncle were on their way back from chopping and gathering firewood. They were going slow on this dirt road, and Joe just had this feeling he was being watched, and he was about to look out his window when his uncle shouted, "Don't." He then heard 3 taps on his window as his heart literally felt like it had stopped beating. His uncle started praying and going faster, and he thought all was okay, but then the truck dipped from the bed. At this point, his uncle just kept saying, "Look at me, don't turn away, just look at me please," and he heard the tapping again. Joe was now crying at this point as the truck dipped for the 2nd and 3rd time. Finally, his uncle gave a sigh of relief and said they'd both need prayers in the morning so the evil would forget their faces. When they got home, Joe called his uncle a while later because he had had a nightmare. His uncle said he didn't see any faces, just eyes, like they were just lights on the road. Joe asked him why he didn't just slam on the brakes when it was in the back, and his uncle replied saying because it wasn't alone. When I read that the first time, it legit just gave me shivers. Like, how can you end a story like that because it wasn't alone? That's a great. And finally, at number 1 is The Thing. So this one again is from Joe, and he lived on the reservation when the story took place. He was home with his 2 brothers and dogs one night when they started making a lot of noise outside. People, you have to trust your dogs when they're barking at stuff outside. It's probably a skinwalker. In the middle of the night, Joe and his brother woke up because the barking started again. He went outside and saw that one of the dogs was just losing it near the truck. When he looked there was a really tall man there looking at the dog and then kicking it. When it looked up, it had a pure white face, a pure black smile, and red burning eyes. It came to him and towered over him, and all Joe could see was a deep red. Things are clearly not going well at this point. His brother finally came out of the house not knowing what was going on, and at this stage the thing's hands were inches away from Joe's head. From what he could recall, its skin was black and it smelled like a bloated dead animal, and he was just stood there unable to move or speak. The skinwalker let him be and went for his brother instead, which is what finally broke Joe out of this trance and made him really angry. He started baring his teeth at it and growling in a way he didn't even know he could do. He kept roaring at it while it smiled back at him, and his smile faded the angrier Joe got, and then he just ran away into the night. That's it. No murder, no clawing at the face, just ran away into the night.
And we're gonna start this list off with the most common form of the Skinwalker, the one seen in Navajo folklore. I'll have to apologize from the jump here because Skinwalkers are not supposed to be discussed. It's said that they will hunt down whoever speaks them out loud, and details about Skinwalkers are not something that the Navajo like discussing with outsiders. Because of this, there's a lot of mystery surrounding these entities, and most most of the stories on this list probably don't resemble the more traditional aspects of the creature. But in general though, skinwalkers are malevolent entities that can take on the form of a variety of different animals, commonly wolves or coyotes. These creatures were formerly practitioners of dark magic, witches who committed particularly awful acts of some kind, like taking the life of a family member, for example. Skinwalkers are also said to be able to take on human forms, appearing as a friend or loved one. And at number 9, we have the Skinwalker on the Road legend. So there are a variety of different tales in this realm of Skinwalker folk, but these are probably the best examples of the more Anglo-American versions of the creature, veering away from the traditional Native American depictions. These types of stories are really what ignited the popularity of skinwalkers on apps like TikTok, for example, where you have found footage of a supposed skinwalker type creature lurking behind bushes or on the side of the road, stuff like that. In general, these stories feature someone driving down a desolate road at night. Maybe they see someone stranded on the side of the road. In some versions, they might pull over and get out of the car to help the person before realizing they've encountered a malevolent entity. Other versions are more subtle, where someone just sees something strange on the side of the road, a deer walking on its hind legs before running off into the forest while laughing, that kind of thing. Speaking of skinwalkers being featured in videos though, we have this next clip originally posted to TikTok by It's Louis Vuitton. In the modern era, especially with the rise of the internet, video has added a whole new layer to the way urban legends are spread, and creatures in traditional folklore sometimes make an appearance, creating a kind of new level of buzz around them. In this video, a few guys are driving down a quiet road in the dead of night, using their flashlights to try and spot a buck that one of them said they saw. In the distance, one of them spots some type of figure, thinking it may be the animal they spotted earlier. When they shine their light on it though, whatever it is looks too human to be a buck, but not normal enough to be human. A pale, slender creature that makes a terrifying screeching sound before it begins rushing towards the camera. In at number 7 is a skinwalker encounter story posted to Reddit by Schnizzly. It was almost midnight, and they lay inside their tent attempting to sleep. The tent was pitched near a cluster of standing dead trees, which would emit creaking sounds when the wind blew. This night, however, was oddly silent and motionless. Gradually, they started hearing the distinct noises of cracking sticks and footsteps drawing nearer over a span of about 15 minutes. The sounds were loud enough to convince them that a bear was approaching. The unseen presence came so close that it seemed no more than 15 feet away. The cracking sticks and soft steps persisted, and the Redditor, growing fearful, decided to shout out loudly. All they heard was an eerie silence, with no signs of the creature fleeing. They sat in silence, attempting to rationalize the situation, and about 20 minutes later, the silence was shattered by an unsettling, unnatural noise. It mirrored the timbre and volume of the trees creaking outside, but just didn't sound ordinary. The sound began and sustained the exact same note for a prolonged 5 seconds or even more. An unnatural kind of drone. There was no wind, and the noise had no correlation to the usual tree creaking sounds. They couldn't sleep the rest of the night. It wasn't until weeks later they made the connection that skinwalkers were known to imitate sounds in a similar manner. And at number 6, we have Chased. This story was just recently posted to Reddit by user Dog with Keyboard Woof. Apparently this happened in Western Cape, South Africa, 13 years ago. They wrote, "A friend of mine and I were 15 at the time. We were walking home at midnight in a small coastal town in winter, so there wasn't really anybody around. We heard dogs barking up ahead, and we thought, damn, those dogs can hear us all the way from down here, and we carried on walking when I got a weird feeling, but ignored it. As we got to the corner, in a split second we heard movement next to us and instinctively pulled away when a tall, like 7-foot plus, all white figure with no hair came out of the bushes. At this point, we were running away full speed. My friend even shouted at me to wait for him because I am a lot quicker. I turned around and I couldn't effing believe what I was seeing chasing behind him. We managed to zigzag our way around because we'd grown up here and we knew shortcuts and hid in a building site for hours. before eventually running home. And at number 5, we have Saved by a Phone Call. I don't even care if this story was completely made up. It's a chilling one. It was posted to Reddit by user 20 Green Beans and goes as follows. Last night, I had definitely what will go down as one of my most bone-chilling memories. I was wide awake and nowhere near tired. I was reading in my living room near the window. From outside, I heard my sister's voice calling for me. She was out all day, out of town. I thought she was just coming by to show me the dresses she picked out to wear to the wedding she's attending this week. Us both being night owls, I thought nothing of it. I heard the voice yell for me again, so I looked out the window. Downstairs, I saw her just standing there looking up into the living room window. She motioned for me to come down, but her body language didn't look like hers. It was rather stiff and her face didn't move as I heard her yell for me again. Figuring she was just too tired to come up, I turned to grab my shoes and head downstairs. But then this is what kept me up all night. My phone went off. It was a phone call coming in from my sister. I answered it to say that I'd be right down. She's always been a rather impatient person, so before she could say anything, I just said, yeah, I see you, I'm coming down. There was a slight pause, and she goes, no, I just got home. You aren't answering my video chat requests. I want to show you my dresses I'm gonna wear. My stomach sank. I looked out the window. What I thought was her wasn't there. I know it would have had to been something trying to imitate her because she called out in her exact voice and inflection, using 2 nicknames that only she uses. Creeped out, I quickly video called her. From her phone camera, I saw the familiar background of her bedroom. I've never felt so unsettled in my whole life. And at number 4, we have The Grove. This story was shared to Reddit by user Hey Johnny Utah. This didn't happen to me, but a very close friend of mine. Patrick's story kept me from going back to a favorite backcountry secret stash. He was leaving the area one morning and had been camping there a couple days and said there was a coyote that always seemed to be close by, like in his peripheral vision, but never overt. He loaded up his truck and started to drive down the wash out to the fire road. At the end of the wash, he could see the coyote following him. When he pulled onto the road, it was running next to him. Now he was freaked out, so he sped up. He said he was going 35 or so and it was running along beside him. Definitely not possible. When he looked back, the coyote was running on 2 legs and was wearing what Patrick said looked like buckskin pants. An instant later, it was a person wearing a coyote fur keeping pace with his truck. When he looked again, it was gone. We never went back to the Grove after that. Too freaky. So you can kind of see the Skinwalker on the road legends kind of making their way into that one, which is interesting. At number 3, you have a story posted by Punch Drunk AA. So this happened about 12 years ago. My family owns a farm in the heart of an Indian reservation. One winter I was home for Christmas, taking care of the farm while my parents were away Christmas shopping. As I was home by myself, way late in the night, and I hear all the cows freaking out. I knew it had to be the wild dogs that are rampant in the area, so I throw on some boots, grab a shotgun, load it up, and head out to the field. This was a perfect scenario for a horror movie. It was cloudy, but there was a full moon, and it was breaking through the clouds just right to light up all the snow. I ran out into the middle of the field, and just in time, I see 2 dogs. They were standing up, facing each other, and fighting. I think, perfect. 2 for 1. So I pump a shell into the chamber of my 12 gauge and then it happened. The 2 dogs heard the rack. They both stopped, looked over at me and ran away on their back legs. Immediately I froze and every ghost story about skinwalkers and all the other native legends I grew up with flew through my mind. In at number 2, Skinwalker Ranch in Utah is known for its eerie stories surrounding skinwalkers. Over the years, witnesses have reported encountering unidentified flying objects as well, witnessing cattle mutilations, and having first-hand encounters with what really sounds like skinwalkers. Scientific investigations into these strange occurrences have been inconclusive, with researchers unable to provide definitive explanations before these events, the mysteries surrounding Skinwalker Ranch are just too numerous to count. In 1996, the ranch gained significant attention when it was purchased by billionaire businessman Robert Bigelow, who established the National Institute for Discovery Science to study the paranormal activity reported on the property. NIDS conducted research on the ranch, employing a team of scientists and researchers, investigators. Various television shows and documentaries have explored Skinwalker Ranch, cementing it really as this hotbed of paranormal activity. And finally, we have an encounter story that was posted by Weld Form. It goes as follows. We live in an apartment complex at the edge of town in Illinois. Right next to us is a woodsy area full of coyotes and deer and lots of birds, so it's pretty lively. Last night at 3 a.m., she went outside to grab a case of water from the trunk of our car, and when she was grabbing it, she claimed she heard someone say, "Hello?" in a girl's voice coming from the woods. She couldn't see anything, but she replied back, confused, saying, "Hello back." Whatever it was ended up saying, "Can somebody help me?" And that's when she got the chills and ran as fast as she could back inside our house. Right before she entered the house, she said she heard it again, with the voice getting closer, asking for help. But instead of a normal girl voice, it turned into a girl voice that didn't even sound real. She couldn't explain the change in that voice. Plus, she said afterwards, thinking about it, that the voice sounded familiar, but couldn't point out whose it was. Why I believe she wasn't BSing is because 2 years living here, we've never talked about things like this. And when she rushed inside, she startled me because her face was in shock. She was breathing heavily. Like I thought she'd seen something or heard a gunshot. I don't know.
Starting us off at number 10 is the cattle. Terry Sherman moved onto the ranch with his family, but after everything they saw and experienced, he sold the 512-acre ranch only 18 months after. The family had seen multiple mysterious crop circles, giant yellow-eyed creatures, unexplainable lights in the sky, and of course the attack on their livestock. At one point, 7 of their cows were either dead or missing, and the cause of death was particularly weird. One cow had a hole cut out in the center of its left eyeball but had no other injuries. Another cow had the same surgical incision and had a 6-inch hole cut out of its rectum. I mean, last time I checked, animals who attack can't just make surgical incisions like that, so Other cows just had their blood drained, but if you asked anyone where the blood went, they wouldn't be able to tell you. A quarter of their livestock died this bloodless way. Cattle mutations is one thing, but the chemical smell that was present with each cow was very disturbing. For the cows that disappeared, their hoof prints would literally stop mid-path like they had just vanished into thin air or had been abducted by something from above. Why have aliens always been so obsessed with cows? I don't get it. It's like the most repetitive motif in time. What is it with cows? Coming in at number 9 is the giant beast. The Sherman family recall this one terrifying incident that's etched itself into their minds forever. One night back in March of 1997, a huge wolf-like creature came down from the plains and spotted a group of calves that were in their pen. And when I say huge, you guys, I mean 3 times bigger than the size of a regular wolf huge. Like, that was big. The creature came and put its head through and tried pulling one calf fully through and out of the fence. Terry saw this and ran inside to get a gun and started just shooting it, but the creature was unfazed. He went and then got an even bigger rifle, and after shooting the beast 8 times, it finally dropped the calf. Now was their only chance, so Terry chased the creature all the way to the edge of the ranch, but by the time it got to the river and crossed it, its prints were just gone. They were present on Terry's side of the property, but had somehow vaporized on the other side. Bruh, what the hell is this creature that can survive more than 8 bullet wounds from a rifle? At number 8, we have the spheres. We've covered humanoid beasts and drained cattle, and now we're gonna dive into floating spheres. This place really is a mess. Now, during the family's 18-month stretch at the ranch, the one thing they said they saw the most of were floating spheres. Different colors, different sizes, just so many of them. 12 separate incidents were reported where the family and their visitors saw giant orange circles flying over the trees on the ranch. If that's not bad enough, Terry saw the orange circle open up and smaller other spheres would just come flying out of the middle. One of the Sherman's neighbors even confirmed seeing some flying orange basketball in the sky. That wasn't a basketball, my friend, that was Zektu from planet Food doop. Filling our number 7 slot are the lights. During the Shermans' short and not sweet stay at the ranch, there were a number of unexplainable lights and orbs in the sky. One time in the middle of the night, the family was awoken by what seemed like football stadium lights illuminating their house. Simultaneously, there was this musk-like odor going through their home at the same time. On another occasion, the family saw huge shafts of light going from the ground to the sky, and this machinery sound coming from inside the earth along with it. Like, what the F? How deep have the aliens put their claws into the earth that the family had machinery coming from inside the ground? And what are these beams of light signaling even? Now at number 6 is the spy. After the Shermans sold the ranch, Colum, a biochemist working with the National Institute for Discovery Science, was on site when he saw something. In a tree about 50 yards away from the research team, a large humanoid creature seemed to be watching them. It was perched around 20 feet off the ground and was just casually, motionlessly sitting there. You wouldn't even have had the slightest clue it was there except for its yellow eyes that did not blink. The biochemist is not a wuss, so he fired at the thing, but it disappeared, leaving only one footprint in the ground. Upon investigation, it was this oval 6-inch track that looked like it had 2 sharp claws coming from out of the rear, kind of like a raptor print or something like that, but considering how deep the track was, they guessed this creature was heavy as hell. Coming in at number 5 are the groceries. Most of the stories I was reading were mostly extraterrestrial related, but this one seems kind of paranormal, which I clearly have a lot of experience with, seeing as I'm a host on this channel. One day, Gwen, aka Mrs. Sherman, was coming back from the grocery store and put down her bags. Then, like any normal person, she unpacked all the bags and put them where they needed to be. The fridge, the shelf, the freezer, whatever she wanted. She folded up the bags and went to pee, but when she got back, she saw all the bags back on the counter filled with all the products she had just put away. Now, how the hell did that happen, and who or what did it? I mean, A, she just went and unpacked all that, so this entity just cancelled out all her productivity. B, if you want to mess with someone, there are better ways to do it than that. And number 4 is the UFO. So we can all agree the Shermans have seen enough to last a lifetime. One night, Terry looked out his window to see an RV parked in the pasture outside. Thinking the people driving may need directions or something, he decided to go outside and ask if they needed help. Good guy, Terry. The refrigerator-shaped RV had a red light at the back and white light in front, and as soon as Terry went outside, the RV somehow rose into the air and flew out of sight. Out of sight. It flew. This RV that was clearly alien craft and not an RV flew into the ether somewhere. Like, can we talk about that? Filling our number 3 slot is the sickness. When you're working or living in a supernatural extraterrestrial hot pot 24/7, you can't think it's not gonna have a negative effect on your mental or general health. Colum wrote in his book Hunt for the Skinwalker that some of the employees on the ranch would have physical symptoms of the supernatural phenomena. They would report various migraines and nosebleeds despite not having a history of having them. Portable tri-fuel meters would note sharp spikes in activity during the health symptoms despite having been calibrated and tested multiple times. What are the implications of that? What does that even mean? I don't know, but I feel like it's not good. Now at number 2 are miscellaneous incidents. There was so many more stories from the family that didn't fit under just one category or title, so I was just like, let me just file them all under miscellaneous incidents. The family would just be working outside in the pasture and hear floating voices above them talking to each other. Where were the ghostly voices coming from? No idea. Alien related things like circular ice patterns, crop circles, and huge holes would just randomly appear all over the property overnight. The family hardly ever slept, and anytime they did, they would always have violent nightmares, and turns out a lot of the family members had identical dreams, which is no coincidence. The Shermans' 2 children were honor students before their parents bought the ranch, but after moving there, their grades plummeted hardcore. After being late too many times and sharing strange office stories, Gwen was also fired from her job. In an attempt to protect each other, the family started sleeping on the floor of their front room. I feel so bad. This family is probably so scarred from this whole experience, I can't even begin to imagine. And finally, at number 1 are the orbs. Now, seeing flying orange circles is one thing, but seeing blue orbs is something else. Again, these orbs were the size of a basketball, but were a lot more dangerous. You could tell they were intelligently controlled or had a mind of their own, since they traveled quickly around the ranch and would make sharp turns that needed superhero-like reflexes to accomplish. One fateful night back in May of 1996, Terry was out walking through with his cattle dogs when he saw a blue orb whizzing about the field. He encouraged the dogs to go after it, and they did, biting at it and whatnot, but it outmaneuvered them every time. And it did it just as their teeth were about to get it, so you knew it was teasing them. The orb led the dogs out to the brush, and after hearing 3 distinct yelps, there was no other sound from them. The next day, Terry went searching for the dogs but couldn't find them anywhere. Instead, he found 3 round spots of dead vegetation, and in the middle of them was a large black greasy lump, kind of like the orb had incinerated the dogs. Either way, they never found them.
If you enjoyed these Skinwalker encounters, then you have to check out this video next. It's about upcoming natural disasters that could end the world. Click the video now to find out so much more.